Oh, thank you, Jamie. Jacob accepted the meeting maker, so hopefully he'll get here. And then that leaves Anish and Anas and CY. How was EMBA weekend?
Eva didn't screw it up too bad, so it went all well.
Girl, Eva.
No, it was good. She handled it like a champ. She held down the fort. I was sick, so I was only there on Friday.
Uh-oh.
So.
Sorry, are you talking about me?
Yeah.
I couldn't hear anything, and it's just like blew all over. So.
I told you to screw up EMBA weekend too bad.
Oh no, it was actually good.
How many students started today?
6. For the MBA one, the IT, 6.
Good.
Yeah.
Similar demographic?
Do it.
Similar demographic of students? Are they coming from HMS?
No, it's another agency that they found.
Okay.
But yeah, they're all from India. They all came in the last week or two, and they've all like made friends. Got an apartment down by UMKC because they knew somebody else down there. So class started at 8:30. They showed up about 9:10. So, off to a good start.
Somebody joined my Teams meeting.
Jacob, he always does this. Jamie, I don't even know
how he pulled that off.
Well, I don't know. Jamie, I went to that place with pancakes.
Oh.
I smashed the whole thing.
What place?
It's called La Frescas.
Oh, the one you were talking about.
And I tried the fruit sticks with like Nutella and chocolate syrup. It's the best thing ever. Probably won't fall asleep tonight, but
Dinner of Champions.
Right.
Jacob, how are you?
I'm doing well, man. Pretty warm. How are you?
Yes, hot. Anas, how are you? Hello, Anas.
Hi, George. How are you?
Good. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Thanks for asking.
Good.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Well, I'll go ahead and get started. I am recording it for everyone, so once it's loaded, I'll drop it into the Blackboard course tomorrow. Okay, so here we are for round 2. I'll have everything graded by the end of the week. Grades are due Saturday. So far, so good. Like I told the others, I've read 5 of them. So we are going to get those grades in afterwards. So I want to read everybody's to kind of figure out a baseline and then go from there. But what we're going to be doing this term is taking it to the next level. Not in terms of we're gonna get into some complex topics like multi-level and panel and exploratory factors and things like that. But we're going to start off a little soft this week. And in terms of the syllabus, hopefully nobody overreacted. Yes, there are 4 chapters listed there, but that Hare et al. Book is really going to be kind of a research assistant, if you will, in terms of what you can be doing. And so what I've tried to do is pair the chapters together a little bit of what you've already done. So like simple and multivariate, along with overview of the research process and defining a problem of doing the lit. What I learned is I will assign this book for both terms next year, or next time the course is taught, so that we kind of have a more direct and theoretical approach to the research process instead of you all listening to my chaos. So what we're going to do is kind of go from there. So this term is going to be quite a bit different in terms of the of how the process lays out. So we're going to have our residency at the end of week 3. I believe my math's right there. Is that right? Week 1, week 2. Yes, week 3. So for starters, each week, weeks 1 through 7 is going to have illustrative examples for assigned chapters. I am working through, I've got those all laid out for weeks 1, 2, and 3. Since this textbook does not actually have problems or exercises, it just gives you files to replicate what they do in the chapter. I'm assigning you some simpler problems to start. And then what I'm having to do is find other data sets that I'm having to work the process. So I'm also redoing all the multi-level analysis and the panel data and all that fun stuff on my own to get the do file and the coding. So this week's is pretty straightforward. All right. In terms of the illustrative examples, there's some pretty simplistic problem files. Okay. And then the only reason they're going to get more complex as we go along is simply because of the layers of statistical analysis we're going to be doing. So when we start to get into like module 4, week 4, when we hit the multi-level analysis, it's going to kick off a little bit. Okay. In terms of how do we build out the statistical analysis for this? Ideally, by the time we get there, we'll have already gone through residency. Okay, so at residency this time, if we look at just the basics of everything, for the assigned chapter analysis and presentation, you're going to be doing that at residency this time. Okay, we're not going to do a recorded presentation. You're going to do your chapter presentation at the residency. So we're going to go through all of these statistical analysis chapters together. All right. So I have tried my best to assign you a chapter that I thought most replicated what you were trying to do. Okay. So in NOS, like I gave you dummy variable because you have so many one-off married or unmarried. Some of those ones I thought that might be the best one for you. Jamie, interaction moderation effects because of the potential. I don't know if it's there or not. Combination effects of some of your variables of how they might interact with retention or something like that. EVA, multiple regression, simply because you're going to have so many darn variables in the end. You might get to something like Jacob's going to do, panel data, okay, which we'll go through later. And then Felipe, he kind of got stuck with what was left. So he just wound up with chapter 3, which is going to be simple enough. But yeah, Mandy, I put you at multi-level analysis for I think we talked about this, the potentials of looking at students within schools or within majors, and that could add a hierarchy there. Jacob, I gave you panel data because that's most likely what you're going to be doing. And then Anish, who's joining us now, I gave him time series analysis because he's looking at the inflation rates over a certain time period. And then Paul, I gave you exploratory factor analysis. And so I think that one will fit with what you're trying to do. So ideally what I did is tried to give you something as close as I possibly could to what might benefit you finishing out your project. And now hear me on this. I don't expect you to run panel data this term. If you want to go to the wall, you can and do that. But what I'm saying is I think in the long term of what I would envision potentially your interest areas being in terms of research and statistical analysis, I feel like this is about as close as I can get at this point. Okay. So what we will do with that in module 2 is you'll just submit your PowerPoint. Okay. For week 2, there is no recording anything. Just turn in your presentation, your PowerPoint, and then we will do that on Friday at residency. Okay. In week 3. And so, yes, there's 100 points associated with it. That will be part of the presentation you give that Friday on the 8th or 9th, whatever it is. Okay. So in terms of leaping into the term, we're going to be a little slower pace. So we have a couple of problems for the first chapter: simple, linear, 2-variable regression, and then multivariate regression. They are simplistic. Don't try to church them up, right, Mandy? So what we don't want to do is I don't want you, the last data book was very complex. This one is very complex. What I'm starting you on this first week is simple and multiple regression. We've already done it. So I gave you some really simple files to analyze a couple of things. Just do what I need you to do in terms of regress and things like that and submit it. Okay. If you need help, I'm here. In module 2, we're looking at housing demand in terms of dummy variable regression. So we'll get into that. But overall, the pacing on this term is going to be a little bit different because here's where we're going this term. I'm cutting you loose. Okay. For better or worse, you are going to be cut loose to finish your next 2 sections of your research project. Okay. That'll be due at the end of week 8. I will be here to assist you whenever you need it, but I'm not putting checkpoint assignments in this term. Okay. That was for me to kind of build in since we had so many new students to ensure that we kind of got on the same page and everybody did really well with that. So I will open up weeks 4 and 5 as we go along. I think week 5 or module 5 is done. I just, because I'm neurotic, I need to get module 4 done before I open module 5. Okay. So I am working through module 4, which is multi-level analysis. And I am working through a data set right now, trying to get that done. Okay. And then we should be good to go. Very replicated throughout. There'll just be one chapter out of the Stata textbook each week moving forward. Okay, so I cut some of them out. I cut out survival analysis and the first 2 chapters on research and statistics and introduction to Stata. We'd already done that, so I cut those out. And I think I cut out linear regression assumptions and diagnostics. Now we will go over those at residency, particularly the chapter 7 in linear regression and assumptions and diagnostics. Okay, so I will open it up for questions right now before I jump into the syllabus and how we kind of work through some of this. Paul.
Yeah, so everything that we need to have done before residency is on Blackboard already?
Yeah.
Okay.
So residency is going to be 2 parts, and I don't. There is a residency folder, but it's going to be very much like what we did. Friday we're going to do your chapter presentations. Saturday we're going to start with your quick pitches. Okay, so you're going to enhance those quick pitches based off of the feedback that I give when I enter your grades on the projects you just turned in last weekend.
I personally, I'm just more worried about the week leading up to residency because of travel, I lose 2 days of school work days. So that's all. Thank you.
In terms of, so your presentation is due at the end of week 2, just the PowerPoint. You don't present it until that next week. So that work should be in theory done.
Okay.
On your chapter, right? And then all you have for week 3 is logic regression, which this file is going to be substantially simpler than what was in that prior textbook. Okay. That one got a little out of hand. I think that's the one I told you I'll just give up on. I quit. So that one was rather convoluted. So basically what you're going to do in the logic regression one for that week 3 is do some prediction analysis. So what logic does is it allows you to predict basically off of the regression line. Okay, so we're going to input the income level and the age, and it's going to tell us what the probability of that customer actually preferring light beer or regular beer. And so what we do is that data set, and from the logic perspective, it builds it out for us. We just have to enter the coding. So I'll help you along with that, and as will the textbook. Okay. What else do we have before I open the syllabus? Nothing?
I don't know. I was just gonna ask you because I know I need to get a couple of data like points on my on that data set, but I know you had worked with Boyd on that. Do you think that request needs to come through you, Or do I need to send it to them?
Yeah, send it to me what you need and I'll send it to with Kevin Murray and we'll send it through that way. It gets some attention.
Okay,
It shouldn't be bad because we have the SQL and we can just add those data points on the backside.
okay. I need to think through what I need, and I might check with Mary Kay to see if the difference between inactive status for if they just go inactive or when they graduate. So we make sure we pull the right points and see if I can get both of those. But okay.
And I haven't got to your paper yet. So,
Okay.
but I'll have a better idea once I read some of your descriptive statistics of what you can measure.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
Paul, stop raising your hand, Paul. Just do it.
The discussion for this week, there was no discussion.
I opened it up. That's my
Okay.
fault. So I apologize. I had initially built it to where you each needed to post, but now you'll see it in there. There are 2 prompts and I will go over what we're going to do in discussion as we do the syllabus. Okay. Are we good there?
Just real quick, sorry, George. And maybe you're gonna touch on the syllabus. It says Wednesday. Is that correct? Because I don't know how long they're gonna be, but there's no way unless I do it right after this, I can do that tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I think you can.
Oh no, I mean I've got a work thing. Like I have to. Like, I'm not gonna be home. Like I was kind of. I mean, if I have to take a couple points hit, that's cool. I just want to make sure I read it right.
I'll move them to Thursday since I didn't have them open yesterday. But the fact that and this is not me being mean or anything, but I just got an email today saying it was locked means nobody had checked it up to that point anyway. So, you know, we'll move it to Thursday. I'll move the deadline right now.
Yeah, we can do Wednesday going forward. I guess I just kind of planned on it. Being Thursday.
And this
That
is going to
must-
be different since we're going to have no checkpoints. This is going to be a little different process. Due by Thursday, I'll highlight this. Oh, underline. Updated. All right. So
Sorry
this
about
one-
that. I appreciate
Oh,
it.
that's not what's my fault. I had it locked. It was my fault for how I set it up. I had initially a different plan for it. Okay. There it is. Okay. All right. We got the syllabus. We do. Okay. Here's our books. This one is included in the course. Okay. That's the one that's built into the e-text. Okay. So e-text right here, you just open it up and you can go to it right through there. It's built in. If you want to opt out and get a hard copy, be my guest. That's perfectly fine. There is the companion site here. What I did, this textbook is drastically different than what we were doing before. There's no exercises A through F, none of that. What we see when we open this is data sets. And the nice part about this is the great part about it for students. If we want to look at the simple bivariate regression, we can go right in and download the example from the textbook. Okay, so as the textbook is walking you through the example, this is the DTA file and this is how they coded it. Okay, so this can help you in terms of some simplicity. In some of them, they are unmitigated chaos. Okay, but for the logistics of how do we set things up, how do we recode them, how do we destring them, there's examples of that built into a lot of these. So when you go, if you want to follow along in the textbook, particularly for your chapter, this is what you would do. You would start the process of screen 2. You would just go through and you can walk through the chapters on how to do that. Okay. And each one just downloads over to a data set that you can look at. And that again is just built right here into the companion website. So all the DTA files are there. The assignments so far are not related to the DTA files for the chapter, but they mimic what they do in the chapter. Okay. And so this one, it's completely up to you. The Essentials of Business Research, there are no assignments out of it. But I will tell you now that book is extraordinarily beneficial in terms of breaking down the research process. And then in the later chapters of identifying, like examining relationships, looking at correlation and regression, and then reporting. And then I think in chapter 5, testing hypotheses with quantitative data. And then chapter 4, and I know I'm flashing through real quick, but you'll see all this eventually. And then qualitative data. Okay, so I attach these together because this is how they are linked in theory. Multi-level deals with massive amounts of qualitative data. So I'm sorry, where's the qual? Qual. Data. There we go. And so what we're going to do here is we're going to go through some of this data and see how it's worked in the book. Now, again, the research book is just as an accompaniment. Okay, if you choose not to read it, that's on you. If you choose to read it, that's great. Class is going to be the same before stata. Grading's the same. The teaching methodology is going to be very much the same. Attendance policy, Blackboard participation, submission of work. I will go ahead and say this now. Please hear me on this. Your safe assign is going to, when you submit your final project in week 8, is going to flag your prior work. Okay. My expectation is that you're going to reuse a majority of what you did for the prior term. Okay. Because we were looking at sections 1, 2, and 3. I do expect heavy enhancements to all of those sections in terms of more literature, more literary support in terms of the methodological approach, and based off whatever feedback I give you. So there's going to be some additions to that. But overall, don't worry about that getting flagged. What I would be more concerned with is if the newer newer sections have more matching than not. Does that make sense? Okay. So don't get caught up on that one. APA, we're going to work on that a little bit for some of you. We got to do some cleanup in terms of your APA and your formatting. Same policy, no late work's going to be accepted. Paul, I did add this for you. Grammarly is okay to assist with editing. Don't freak out. That's not AI, in my opinion. That is an editor. So I added that. If there's any other ones that you think I need to add that help you in terms of your writing or your cleanup, do let me know. I'm happy to adjust the syllabus and re-enter it. So plagiarism thing stands, handbook stands, and then here we go. So in terms of our reading, it does look like a lot, but we have our discussion board and our examples. Our discussion board and our examples. Now the discussion board moves from 2 chapters down to 1 moving forward. Okay. And I'll get into that in a minute. But and then our illustrative examples move down to 1. We turn in our presentation, we have our residency, and then we're just doing our thing on the way out. Okay, as you're tidying up your last couple sections, you're running your quant work, and you're cleaning up your proposal, or I'm sorry, your final product. That's it. So it's going to be rinse and repeat in terms of what we're doing each week. However, it's going to have a little different flavor because of term project guidelines, 200 for the written report, 50 for the final video presentation. But this is where we're bringing it all together. Okay, we've got 16 weeks of work, and this spells it out. So you'll utilize my feedback for the prior term. You'll continue to add to your literature review and your literary defense, as I stated. Ultimately, you will test your research question and your hypotheses in stata. Formal outputs are a mandatory part of this project. Okay. The final paper must be at least 20 pages, not counting title page, abstract, references, and appendix. While I'm comfortable, and I don't want to have to write this out, while I'm comfortable with you having a couple of insets within the paper, most of your work needs to be in the appendix. Okay. Most of your statistical outputs need to be there. I don't want 8 pages of stata in the document. Okay. So we'll come to that. And we could possibly buy a couple of pages with, you know, some generic correlation outputs or some of the p-value and statistical significance outputs that we're going to learn about in the book. We can build some of those in, but I just don't want people chewing up pages with stuff that should be in the tables or the appendix. Okay.
George, I have a question about tables. One thing, when we were setting up our the paper from the last 8 weeks, APA has some very specific guidelines for term papers and tables within papers. And a lot of times I was just cutting and pasting what the data output. So when we come to the conclusion of this 8 weeks, do you want us to make new tables in APA format?
Yes, Stata actually will do it for you, and you will learn that in chapter. It'll pump out the statistical significance. I will have to find it, Mandy. Let me look at it and see. But yes, typically what you have to do is on your, like, for instance, on your dissertation, you're most likely building that table. You're not going to crop it out of Stata. And so you're going to build a table, you're going to add the asterisks. Now, it is in this book, and there is an output that does that for us. In that table, the problem with it not being in Word is the format and the font and the size are different, and that, for whatever reason, falls outside APA. Now, am I fine with that? We'll cross that bridge when we get there. If somebody wanted to send me one and say, is this acceptable? And it looked good, I'd be fine with it. Again, we're not doing a dissertation here, but we are cleaning up our writing and our presentation as well. So,
Okay, thanks.
Yep. And I will say, APA resources are here in the syllabus. I got asked that question. I couldn't remember where I put it. Here's where they are. Okay. At least 100 unique observations. This hasn't changed. This hasn't changed, except for the fact that in the prior one, we said we were only getting to here. Okay. Now we are getting to the results, the discussion, and conclusion. So here's kind of my pitch to you. If you were at around 10 to 12 pages already, you are easily going to get 8 or so pages between the results, the discussion, and the conclusion. Okay, so while you do a lot of literary support up here and you setting up your question and your hypotheses, the results section is pretty much going to be numerical and you just spitting out the data, right? You're going to talk about it. But the discussion section, identifying how it kind of reattaches to some of that literature at the top, you know, you're gonna be able to do that. And then in the conclusion, there's also going to be some literary support. So you're going to be able to buy some pages in this area. And ideally, you know, so what are some of the limitations, areas for future research? This would be a good opportunity for you all to, you know, some of you that are more well positioned to be aligned or parallel to your dissertation idea. This would be a good idea for you to clearly address some of the limitations and areas that you could go into. Okay, because you'll be able to look back on it and be like, all right, here's where I was at, here's where I need to go, that sort of thing. For discussion, we're going to reuse this. Okay, we're going to reuse the outline for critically reviewing an article. Now, here's where the class deviates from the prior one. Okay, when we look at discussion, this week you have a mix of the two. So for simple linear regression, you're going to find an academic article that utilizes simple linear regression. Ideally, that's somehow tied to your project. If you want, you'll post and discuss the selected article in the discussion board, and you'll respond to at least 3 peers. Okay, so you can pick whatever topic you want on this one. And then on multiple regression, I brought in some old but fundamentally awesome articles relating to business, particularly marketing. So it's got a little bit of qualitative stuff, But you'll select one of the articles below. And all the articles I recommend can be found in the Gangwish library. And they use multiple regression in their quant section. Okay, so each week we're going to be looking to find an article that utilizes whatever the topic is that week. And so, but if we review Clausen, right, we have to, which is only like 6 pages, we have to review Alpert as well, because it's kind of Clausen didn't know what the hell he was doing type article. And these two groups spat it out for about 6 years. So if you do this one, you've got to do both. The total is 8 pages. This one's 17. And looking at a multiple regression analysis of chain stores and the factors that affect them. Typically, I think this one's around location, if I recall off the top of my head. And so you will do just one of them, not both of them. I mean, this is still one. You'll either do Clausen or Highs. And then again, the first week, since we don't have much in terms of anything else, that's kind of the big one. Module 2, you're going to bring in your own article. Okay, so each week you'll see these of what they're doing, and I'll open these up now that we've had the conversation. I'm trying to think. Logit, you can either pick your own or you can do this one. Okay. A failure prediction model for young firms. Okay. So each week you're going to be doing that. And ideally, so like, for instance, what I did for mine was oh my gosh, cryptocurrency was going crazy. So what I did is I just was pulling more recent articles that were statistically researching crypto. And I found them doing it each different way. How are they using logit regression to predict future price points or future bubbles? How are they using panel data to analyze different systematic adjustments between different groupings? And so some of them were able to predict, they were pretty close on their real-time predictions of bubbles within the crypto space. But you pick whatever you want in that article. What we're trying to do here is share with each other how these published articles go through and do exactly what you're doing. Okay, how did they get to their research question, their lit review, their methodology, and really where we want to stay focused is the quant side of it. How did they use that particular week's concept and construct a model around it and then produce an output? And then how did they do it to either prove or disprove their hypotheses? Okay. So we don't have checkpoint assignments, but we do have those tasks to do each week in terms of, I'm not looking for a 6-page analysis. Give me a summative page. Okay. And just use what I did in the syllabus here. These are the main things that I'm looking for you to address. Okay. The first couple of weeks will probably be challenging in terms of feeling like you did it enough to justify this, but I promise you're going to be fine. You will have done enough so far that you should feel comfortable within this realm. Okay. Stata resources are still here. I copied those over. But ideally, that's pretty much the course. But this one, the final project is on you all as doctoral students now. Okay. I will give you my feedback by the end of the week. I'm here to assist whenever you need it. But really, the completion of this project, I'm kind of tossing you out on your own because, well, when you get done with your coursework, no one's going to be chasing your tails to get it done. So this is your chance to kind of, some of you might get it done in the next 3 weeks. I have no idea. But we'll go from there. I'm not sure. Is that crying or laughing?
Oh, the 3 weeks got me, man. That's bold.
Well, I guarantee you there's a couple in here that could pull it off. I haven't got to yours, Jacob. You might be done. I don't know.
Don't play with me, man, but we'll see. Looking forward to it.
All right. So I want to talk about the applied stats book real quick. I understand there are questions that are outside this textbook. It will drastically help you if you go through and do the examples that they do. Again, they produce the do files for you. Okay. They give you the DTA set. You can open the do file alongside it, and you can see as you read down through the book, you can see exactly what they were doing and why. This will help provide clarity in some of those areas that were a little murky last term, because we just didn't have time together to go through some of the things like logic. Okay. So if you look at how they do those things, and again, I'm not asking you to replicate those in those illustrative chapters. They're going to be a little reduced from what they do in here. But what I'm asking you to honestly dive into in terms of your statistical understanding of what you need to walk away from in this class, it would behoove you if you took on those examples and did them as you read along in the chapter, because not only are they showing you the exact steps to do it, they're explaining the outputs every step along the way. Okay. And so when you stumble into something, let's say Paul wanders into, he's going to get into multi-level analysis, right? He can come back and say, okay, well, if I start here and I go here, these are the outputs they were looking at a very similar thing. So maybe I should mirror mine after that. Okay. This is a wonderful book. And while it's around the social sciences, there is a potential for several of you to get into this large of data sets. Okay, so I want to strongly encourage you to look at their examples and work through them while you do it. Again, do not replicate what they're doing in the totality of it with what I'm asking you to do in those more illustrative examples. Okay. Those are two different things. Some of them go into way too much depth of something that you might uncover if you become an academic and you're at an R1 institute and you're publishing. Most of you are never going to get there, and that's fine. That's not an insult. I never want to be there. So, but they go into the weeds quite a bit. But at least in this book, they walk you along the process in a much more systematic way because they give you the do file. They don't just show you the chaos in the book. Okay. Another thing I learned, I will probably replace that book from last term. There was just a little too much ambiguity in some of those areas. This one does a much more clear-cut job of, in the do file, it says, here's the do file. This is why we did it. Here's the do file. This is why we did that. And it follows along in text and in short version within Stata. Okay. It's a much better book, in my opinion, than the last one. And this is the newer edition. So trying to think what else. Don't hesitate to send me your do files, your DTA files. I can look at all that. But the main thing is, I feel like in terms of last term, you spent a lot of time doing like lit review, right? And you spent a lot of time doing the lit review for the methodology. You should be pretty much shored up in that area. Okay. So think about the work you've already got done. I'm kind of backfilling some of that with getting you a little more exposure into the technical side of Stata. So that's where you need to go. And then if you have any free time, I would strongly encourage the research book. It won't be that bad. I promise. You guys look at module 1's chapter examples. It's very straightforward. I did not recreate anything deep because we've already done those chapters. Okay. So I just want you to re-engage with simple linear regression, multiple regression, and let's move on. You've already done those. You've already spent a week on those. I want you to touch them because some of you are going to do that in your project for this term. Okay. And then the chapters just come ready to discuss, and then also start thinking about how you're going to need to, and you're going to have to wait for my feedback on this, clean up your quick pitch presentations. You will only have 6 slides this time, and your slides cannot be 18 bullet points long. All right. So think about how you're going to give an elevator speech to your topic clearly, concisely. You all did great, by the way, the last term. You did great with that quick pitch. That was something new you hadn't done. And so, but what I want you to do is start to really isolate what is the most important part of your research that you're doing right now. What do I have to know, and what can I wait to read in the paper? Okay. I'm excited. I'm the only one that gets you back to back, so. And I've talked up the group. Stephen, Dr. Weiss is ready to go for your evaluation side. I said, statistical gurus, don't worry about it. They're gonna be ready to go come fall 2. You'll like Dr. Weiss too. So what else do we have?
In the discussions, do you want us to, you said it would be roughly a page. Do you want us to just type it in there, or do you want us to type it in Word and like upload a document into those?
I always encourage students to type their work in Word and save it as they go, and then just copy and paste it in.
Just, okay, you do want us to just copy it directly in there though.
You can post it as a Word document, but it's whatever you want. I'm not going to be picky as long as I can see the work was done and you picked a pragmatic article that actually replicates what we're trying to look at in that chapter. Yeah.
Okay.
So realistically, what I should get this week in terms of output from you all is probably about a page on each discussion prompt. And then those other ones, even if you include some pictures or snips from Stata, are like a page. Okay, they're pretty straightforward. So we're talking about like 4 pages this week.
Then, sorry, I stepped out to use the restroom real quick, but I think I came on the tail end. You kind of want us to use that format in the syllabus for those reviews, correct? I mean, just at a high level.
Yeah. I feel like you all have read enough articles at this point to feel comfortable with, how do I identify the main issue or topic? How do I identify the nature and the significance, the research criticisms? And that's where you're picking apart the article, okay? And then the reference to the topic, and then about the future implications. So again, I would like to see you all find some topics or articles that are attached somehow to your research. But like I said, I did mine on crypto because I was fascinated by it. And this is the funny part. Like okay, hear me. One of my articles got redacted that I used. So it was a published article on the crypto space that was projecting. Oh, I'd have to go look it up. But you go find the article now, and it has black bold redacted all over the pages. So people get trash published, and then they get caught on the backside on their statistical analysis, and they get redacted. Now that's with those 2 individuals forever. Now they got through some referees and things like that, but it still got published, and I still ran with it because crypto was so new. I'm like, hell, I don't know what we're going to do with time series on this thing. Let's roll. And so it's just one of those things. So it doesn't have to be your topic. It can be something you're absolutely just interested in. Do it. There are no parameters around that other than use the outline to critically review it. And then try to cognitively just think about how they're doing their statistical analysis. So whether that's multivariate or multi-level or panel data. I did not put any assignments in week 8. We have a discussion forum on exploratory factor analysis, but we do not have any like chapter assignments. Okay, you just have that week 8, the discussion prompt, because I think it's important to talk about the exploratory factor analysis. Other than that, it's your final research paper, which at that point will either be in order or it won't. Okay, so is everybody comfortable with that, not having checkpoints? Okay, makes me a little uneasy, but
as long as you're cool with me bothering you a lot, because I feel
No,
like
that's-
I'm gonna have to send stuff periodically just to make sure I'm on track.
yeah, that's perfectly fine. So if you think about it in terms of my time consumption, if I do 4 checkpoints for 9 of you, and I spend an hour on each one at least, and we're talking 9 to 15 hours there. So I've got some bandwidth that's reopened by not doing that. So my expectation is that you are kind of, let's talk about it. Let's make sure your data is in order. My feedback will direct you a little bit in that final one. And I'll probably bring Dr. Jacobson in too, to make sure I've got everybody squared away, because there's a couple of these areas I just don't know anything about. So in terms of your research. So.
When
Questions
we're
on-
researching those articles, for the discussions, this may be a dumb question. Is there a way to like a good research way to find articles that are using that? Like obviously just searching linear regression or whichever one it is, but I didn't know if there's any tips to helping us locate articles that are using that without having to read a whole bunch of them, if that makes sense.
Yes. Let me see. So what I did is I typed in my interest areas. So I just typed in cryptocurrency panel data. And so what it searches for is those two items, right? And so this one was done, an investigation of on volatility of cryptocurrencies by means of heterogeneous panel data analysis. Okay. So if I just stayed with that. So if I did cryptocurrency and multi-level analysis of crypto ransomware using multi-level profiling. So if you, and it's fine to use Google Scholar, don't give me something that was published in 2023 with 0 sites. Like grab something that has some relevance.
If it's in a good journal.
You're not going to find it on Google Scholar.
Oh, sorry. I was thinking like the one that you would show me, the Journal of American Finance or whatever. Like if it's in one of the top tier journals.
Yes.
I mean, okay.
Yeah. Now I would encourage you not to do that, because Jacob, if you recall, when we looked at that, those were some extraordinarily complex articles, especially around their quantitative analysis. Again, my expectation here is that you just look at how others are doing it and analyze it to see how you might incorporate some of it.
Got it. Thank you.
So yeah, don't worry about getting one of those top tier journals where like you get 355-year-olds that have been looking at this project for the last 25 years and they've, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need you to do that. I need you to just be, in it to understand what you can do with it and what they did with it. Okay. But yeah, each one of those, that's kind of what I just came in and did. Exploratory factor. Oh. So, yeah, each one I've typed in so far, which is what I recall doing, consumer-based modeling and ranking of the consumption factors of cryptocurrencies using exploratory factor analysis. Okay. And again, some of these things we'll get to a little bit later in the term, but everything you should be able to find will be out there if you just type in what you're looking for.
Thank you.
Yep. But this will be a good term. This is going to be a real test for everybody to, get everything cleaned up, get everything, sorted and organized, and then start to do some testing. Okay. And again, testing is it's not about being right. It's about doing the test. Okay. It's about saying, here's my research question. Here's my hypothesis. I'm running this test to prove or disprove, or reject or fail to reject, whatever we want to call it. My hypothesis, and then we run the data and we figure that out. Again, it's not about being right or wrong. We're going to learn about some testing techniques around multicollinearity. We're going to look at some endogeneity a little bit, but for the most part, I think we might look at some simultaneous equations. We can look at like a variety of different things, but what I want you to stay focused on is testing what you're looking to test, nothing more. Okay. Figure out what you need to do and get it done. All right. That's it. I don't need you. If your research question is, Mandy, I'm going to use yours. What effect does classroom, activities have on final grades? Okay. Then we're going to test those factors. I don't want anything. I don't want any other noise in the situation. I just want you to test those hypotheses specifically how you can. Jamie, same thing. Eva, I think we'll get there with your data set. And so Anas, you've already started doing it with yours. So when I was looking at your descriptive statistics, I think you're in a good spot there. So you can start to figure out how and what you want to test. But that's what I want you to do. You're only testing around your research question and your hypotheses. Nothing more, nothing less. So don't boil the ocean. All right. We have 8 weeks to get it done. The weekly stuff should be, I think, pretty much minimal. If you have questions, please come to me on those stata projects. I said this all last term. Don't be texting each other. Just come to the source. What are you looking for? How do we get there? Let's do it. Because this is going to be a really quick 8 weeks. All right. Especially when you get into the testing phase, because here's what's going to happen. The testing phase is going to suck and it's not going to work for the first couple of weeks. Okay. But we're going to course correct and you're going to learn along the way. And then you're going to be able to get those outputs by week 5 or 6. Okay. And then we're going to put those together and we're going to finalize that paper. That's the plan. Okay. Everybody here can do it. I've already, you all did wonderful last term. You're going to be able to do that this term. Okay. But we're going to take it the next step. And my hope is what you do here will give you a step up on what you need to do in your future classes. Okay. All right. Last call. I see you peeking over there.
The fact that they can't go outside for recess because it's so hot is creating chaos in our house. You guys are
I
back
get it.
here. Now you have to come say hi.
Mine's just been crying out there. So
Julian!
Anish, anything on your end? Questions?
Yeah, all good.
Okay. So I'll post more as we go along during the week. But mostly just please remember I don't want anybody to start recording themselves for that presentation next week. Okay. Please hear me on that. I don't want you to waste that time. We're just going to turn in the PowerPoint. That's the PowerPoint I expect you to present the next Friday. And then I'll grade you on that. So please don't do that. That last term was an anomaly on how typically this is how it would go for me. You would do your chapter presentation. We'll work through it all. We'll talk about all the topics at once, and then we'll do your quick pitches the next day, and we'll do some problem solving on the backside. Okay. There's a method to the madness, maybe. I don't know. Find out. I don't know. Paul, anything? Jacob, Mandy?
I would just say that I already like that Essentials book.
Oh yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And even if you don't consume it this term, I'm telling you, it will help you through your program. It will help you better understand what you're doing. And I'm sorry I didn't give it to you last term, but lesson learned. I've already told Dr. Jacobson, I was like, hey, it doesn't matter who teaches this next time. That book's got to be in there to help us out. So it is an excellent resource. It helped a lot, and they've added quite a bit to it since the copy that I had. And again, don't think this is the only one out there. There's a myriad of them out there, but this is probably the most, I don't know. It's just, it's broad, but deep at the same time. So, yeah, whatever. Okay. So, sorry, it's been a long couple of days where, I taught in a classroom yesterday that was 85 degrees. So I'm still recovering from the sweating. I had a dress shirt on and my students were like, dude, old man, you were just covered. I was like, yeah, that happened. Don't worry about it. We're getting out of here early today. So it's been a wild week on campus already. So yeah. All right, I'll get those graded. Y'all are going to do fine. Trust in yourselves. And then we'll just kind of go from there. And I'll start to open those weeks up. Like I said, 5's done. I have to finish the multi-level one for 4, and then we'll be ready to go. And then at least you can feel better that I'm suffering through this with you as I find data sets. So let's see. All right. That's it. Okay. I will see you all later. Have a good night.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
y'all.
Bye.